All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed that video. And sometimes in class, I'm asked why everybody in the video is all the same race. And I would just like to point out that they said at the beginning that they tried to pick people who otherwise were basically, the same, that they basically matched, so that the only thing that would vary is the number on their heads. And obviously they didn't match perfectly. There were different colored eyes. There were, taller, shorter, things like that. But they tried to make people as anonymous as they could so that the only thing that they could possibly be reacting to is the number on their foreheads. And the number on their foreheads was supposed to be standing in for, what we all walk around projecting to people all the time, right? We have ways of dressing and acting and the way that we style our hair or put on our makeup or other cues that we put out to the world that allow them, observers to determine how, what qualities we have and whether those qualities match them and whether they think they have a chance with us. And so, people are perpetually sort of sizing each other up, as potential friends or as potential mates. And I thought that the researcher made a pretty good point when he said, we don't really know how we come off to other people, right? He said, we don't know how attractive we are to other people, but we really oftentimes don't realize how we come off to other people. One of the things that this year of being on Zoom meetings has done for me is, first off, I finally figured out how to make it so my picture wasn't in the array of people, so I didn't have to look at myself all the time. But when I talk in a meeting, I pop into the main screen, and of course, when I'm having office hours and things of that like that, I'm like, man, I didn't know I moved my mouth the way that I do when I talk. I didn't know that I make like little flinches with my eyebrows when apparently I'm being suspicious. I mean, I didn't know these things until I've had to stare at myself while talking for this past year, and it's really surprising. I mean, I had no clue I was giving off as many clues to my inner mental state as I do. Kind of a surprise, but I guess probably not the world's worst thing to be giving off clues. But I definitely, after a year of being on Zoom calls, I am confident that I should not be playing poker. I don't think I have any business playing poker. But that's really, I thought that Kendrick made a really good point that, we think we kind of know how we appear to others, and we hope we have these qualities or that qualities and other people can pick up on that. But a lot of times people can't pick up on it. And, we talked about this way at the very beginning of class, this idea that we think that we're transparent. And the truth is people don't necessarily know what's going on inside of our heads. And so to try and figure out whether we're a good match for each other is kind of a trick. So, all right. I didn't mean to start it. I hit the wrong button. Sorry. All right. That's what I meant to do. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some other determinants of attraction, such as personal attributes and then ultimately physical attractiveness. So personal attributes talk about things like how much warmth we exude, how much competence we display. Now, interestingly, on average, regardless of sexual orientation, on average, people who are attracted to women prefer women who exude warmth, and people who are attracted to men prefer men who exude competence. That's a really consistent sex difference regardless of sexual orientation. So that's kind of interesting that we have these things that we sort of expect or want from the two sexes. And now this is in an experimental setting, right? Where people are asked to judge the attractiveness of, these people who have these characteristics that are described, right? That's much different from being in a real relationship with a real human being. And I think we can all agree, whether you are attracted to males or females, you want your partner probably to display some warmth, and you probably want your partner to display some competence. It might just be a matter of what subject they're competent in. It might be a matter of who they show warmth to. There may be some variations in that, but I think we all agree that for our romantic partners, we would probably like both of these personal attributes. And then also from our friends, right? I think when we talk about male friendships, they're probably going to rate warmth as a lower level quality for them, that they probably are more concerned about their friends having competence. We see a lot in friendships with men that they do stuff together, and they oftentimes do favors for each other. So having a friend who has a particular competence that'll allow them to help you out, that's an attractive quality in a male friend for a male friend. Whereas for female friends, oftentimes they want female friends who are warm, who will display empathy, who will be supportive, things like that. So within the group of females, they tend to prefer warmth from their same-sex friendships. And within the group of males, they tend to prefer competence from their same-sex friendships. So those are some interesting sex differences on those personal attributes. Now, physical attractiveness, there are some sex differences in how important physical attractiveness is in a partner, whether it's a romantic partner or a lifetime friend. On average, males rate physical attractiveness as a higher, quality. They when given a list of all these determinants, and they're asked to rate, to organize them from the most important to the least important, males will tend to put physical attractiveness higher on that list than females will. But both sexes want their romantic partners to be attractive usually. And most friends will claim that they don't really care about the physical attractiveness of their friends. So there are sex differences, but within those sex differences, there are some consistencies as well. Arousal increases attractiveness ratings. So if a person's heart rate is up for a completely separate reason, they're scared, they're excited, something like that, the people around them will be rated more attractive than if they hadn't been aroused at the time they were making these ratings. Back in the old days of social psychology, a study was conducted on, I like to call it a rickety bridge because I don't like suspension, walking across suspension bridges, but it was just a suspension bridge up in British Columbia. And an attractive young woman would meet walkers as they came across the bridge. Interestingly enough, she only approached the male walkers, and she would ask them to look at a picture of a woman and then write a story about why the woman looked the way that she did. Does she look upset? Does she look excited? Like, what's going on in this picture? So sort of a little, I'm searching for the word. It's not a Rorschach ink blot. It's thematic apperception test. It's a little bit like that, where you look at the picture and you're supposed to tell the story of who it is and what's happening, stuff like that. So she catches them at the end of the rickety bridge that they've just crossed and then asks them to write a little story about this woman. And so one of the measures in the study was how, the content of the stories that the participants wrote. And then another variable in the study was she gave every participant her phone number and said, it's hard to talk right here and stuff like that. So if you have any questions about the study, please feel free to call me. This is my phone number at the hotel. And she tears off a piece of paper with her number on it and gives it to him. The exact same process occurs over on a stable cement, car drives over it kind of bridge. So no fear, no anxiety for the people who are crossing the bridge, presumably that is solid. Fear and anxiety potentially present on the people who cross the suspension bridge. And what they found is that the men who had just crossed the suspension bridge, wrote stories that were much more, sort of relationship oriented, or had more like sort of alluding to sexual content. Things like she's worried that her boyfriend's going to break up with her. I'm not talking they wrote pornography. I'm just saying things that alluded to, sort of a sexual relationship or a romantic relationship kind of thing, than the people who walked across the solid bridge. And really tellingly, the men who crossed the rickety bridge were much more likely to call the researcher at her hotel, supposedly, after the study, than the men who had crossed the stable bridge. So that early research really solidified this notion that arousal increases, attraction, one way that it does that is by making the people around you seem more attractive. So I found this student video that I thought you might find interesting where they replicated that original study, but this one they did it with people as they were coming into the gym. And then as they were leaving the gym, where now presumably their heart rate's gotten up, they've gotten sweaty, stuff like that. So enjoy this. It's coming up next in the playlist.